It's been about 2 months since the signing of a new START treaty by the U.S. and Russia. And now the new treaty that would limit how much nuclear capability each country has is hitting reality. A Senate hearing to give it the once-over and a dynamic former Secretary of State to tell the senators to essentially sign on the dotted line, please. Dina Gazowski joins us now. Dina.
Hi there, Cedric. Well, you're right. I was on Capitol Hill just a little bit earlier today talking to Dr. Henry Kissinger. And before I was able to speak to him, he was actually testifying in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, trying to urge those senators to finally ratify that START treaty. Let's not forget the treaty was signed by both U.S. President Barack Obama and President Dmitry Medvedev of Russia, like you mentioned, just a few months ago. Now, Dr. Henry Kissinger said, quote, "This treaty is a positive step, that it provides transparency. Also, Cedric, that it's a reset of political relations with Russia." Now, of course, some of the senators, especially the Republicans, voiced their concerns. They said, look, is this treaty really that important, or are we sort of using it as perhaps to establish a broader political dialogue with Russia? Other senators were sort of grilling him on whether or not the United States gave away too much to Russia, made too many concessions. And I was actually able to speak to Dr. Kissinger after the hearing to what he told me in regards to that.
Critics both of U.S. policy and of the START treaty say that the United States is making too many concessions to Russia. How would you answer that?
I don't think they first of all, I don't consider them concessions. Secondly, we didn't make them to Russia. We made them to our idea of American security and to what we think is needed for a stable international system. And we didn't make them to Russia at all.
So there you see Dr. Kissinger saying, you know, this treaty is really vital to American national security interests, and he sort of brushed off all the critics that say that this is giving away too much to Russia.
Well, Dina, Dr. Kissinger is known to be a man who is a very worldly man, and the big topic in the world in the last 2 weeks have been the sanctions against Iran and Iran's nuclear capabilities. He must have had a take on this whole issue.
He did. You know, he was asked about it. Obviously, it's a controversial issue. It's a hot-button issue here in the United States. Listen to what he said about Iran and also what we should expect with the nuclear program moving forward.
We have to come to the point where they abandon the nuclear weapon side of the program.
How are we going to come to that?
Well, they can come to that by agreeing to some of the proposals to send all their enriched uranium out of the country.
Is Russia going to join in on sanctions?
I don't know what Russia will do, but that's the right thing to do.
Now, Dr. Kissinger also said that he feels that a nuclear-armed Iran is actually a greater threat to Russia than it is to the United States. So that's why he said that he was hopeful that Russia will, in fact, join in sanctions. And, of course, we're going to have to wait and see if that happens. But, Cedric, I also want to mention, you know, Dr. Kissinger, who's actually going to be 87 years old this Thursday, you know, he had a warm reception at this hearing, but we were sort of observing the whole room, observing the senators, also the people in back of me, some of the interns, some of the younger staffers and students. And, you know, you see in that video there, John Kerry, he must have not had enough coffee today. He couldn't stop yawning. Some of the students were sort of nodding off to sleep. I was talking about this with my photographer. A little bit disheartening considering that Dr. Kissinger is such a legendary statesman. I mean, former Secretary of State, National Security Advisor. I believe in the beginning, John Kerry actually said this was his 66th testimony there in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
RT's Dina Gazowski making sure the senators and their staffers are always awake. Good job with that.